down now, and I'm sure a lot of you have got different ways of working. Certainly, I've been in a position over the last 2 decades where I've worked in long periods in a remote environment, and we've just got some useful tips to share with you that you may or may not be using. That's only a very small section of the slideshow today. We'll also address security and privacy. Now, we know Zoom has been in the press recently, and we'll do a little piece around security and the privacy issues. And in the tips section a little bit later, I'll show you how to actually make your presentations, your own events, your own meetings as secure as possible. We'll have a little look at the desktop client, and we'll also have a quick look at the Zoom web portal. And they're the 2 key components of the service that you will use on a day-to-day basis on a desktop machine. And then we'll finally move on to the top tips, and we've got some useful resources for you. And then I'll hand over to Damon. He's got some ideas around use examples, and we'll open up the session to Q&As as well. Okay. In terms of remote working, I'll be unapologetic about this. There's a very good guide by Ogilvy, who is a marketing agency, and they kind of encapsulate a lot of the things that I would do on a day-to-day basis in a remote working environment. And it's around 3 core aspects, one being healthy, maintaining the best of health while we're all working remotely, being happy, energized, and connected with each other, and getting the most from the time we're spending at work. This is quite a busy slide, so I'm really only going to focus on a couple of things from each one, and things that we could all embrace on a day-to-day basis. And one of those things is it's kind of old habits and trying to maintain them before we're all put in this remote working situation. And I kind of use my commute time wisely at home. For instance, I might have a 20 or 30-minute commute time with dropping my kids off at nursery and school before we're all locked down. I use that time instead to just go out in the garden, to get my head straight, get some fresh air, and just have a little bit of time before I start the workday. The other thing really is at the end of the day, I have a close down ritual at 5:30. So I'm maintaining a proper work day, and I'll go running with my daughter. So in terms of trying to use old habits and having a proper work day is really, really useful, because at home, as I'm sure you all know, work and personal life just blur into one quite easily. The other thing really is taking a break. It's really important, with back-to-back video calls, high workload, and managing lots of social channels. It can be quite exhausting on a day-to-day basis. And so it's important we all take a break. And I use a version of what I would call the Pomodoro technique. It's a time management method developed by Francesco Cirillo in the late 1980s. And the technique uses a timer to break down work into intervals, which were traditionally 25 minutes in length. And then they're separated by short 5-minute breaks. So it's actually sprinting and focusing really hard on one particular task, getting it done, and then taking a break. And each interval is known as a Pomodoro, which is Italian for tomato. And that came about the tomato-shaped kitchen timer that Cirillo used as a university student. Now, I've kind of extended that to an hour. So I'll really focus and work hard for an hour, and then I'll take a 10-minute break. And that works really well for me. And the other thing around being healthy is, talk big and small. It's the small chat that can be really, really important to help build relationships, because we're not in offices anymore. And I think the key thing around that is that it was quite easy to have chit chat when you're in an office environment with everybody around you. It's not as easy to do that anymore. So I've made a habit of calling all my colleagues, and we have 5 minutes, and it's just first thing in the morning, and just to find out how they are. And it's nothing to do with work, and it is the small things before we have a 10:30 meeting a little bit later to really review what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. I'd make the most of the day, but I would also try and keep some old habits, and I think that's really, really important. Next thing's happy. I think it's really important that we all connect meaningfully as often as possible to maintain those close relationships. Our brains react more positively to seeing faces, and it facilitates more meaningful conversations. So really the lesson here is try and make video and phone calls your first port of call, your default, rather than text, instant messaging, and email. And helping others, I think making someone happy is priceless, and it gives us a huge amount of satisfaction too. I set aside a bit of time each day to call my team individually and check they're okay and offer to help immediately with anything they might be struggling with. And so they know they're supported and appreciated. And if I can help them, that makes me happy too. And one other thing is around over communicating. I think praise, 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 picking up the phone or making a video call to one of your colleagues or someone you're working with when they've done something that's really, really good is really, really, really important. And it really highlights that you're thankful for their effort. It's, again, easy in an office environment to shout over to someone at another desk, say, thank, that's great. But it's not so easy to do or get into the habit of doing when we're all in a remote working environment. So actually over communicating and praising your colleagues when they do something good via video, via call is really, really important. Just a little slide here. We'll talk about virtual backgrounds very shortly, but one of the things we do at Columbus is we use the virtual background service to actually highlight or pick a picture from somewhere we've been, and the other participants have to guess where we are. And it's just a nice way of breaking up the working day and not talking about work continuously whilst we're all remote working. And I'll tell you a little bit more about virtual backgrounds shortly. And finally, productive. I think one of the key things, when you want to get something done, close Outlook. It's that kind of bleeps and dings and all the things you hear, the notifications, the little mail icon, the little beep when there's a new message. It's hard to get into the flow when there's lots and lots of distractions from applications like Outlook. So to get into the flow, close Outlook down if you really need to get something done and really want to focus on it. And the other good one I like is eat the frog. I'm sure many of you have heard the expression before, penned by Mark Twain, but it's really, really good to get the things you don't like doing out the way first thing in the morning. It might be a phone call you were dreading. It might be a report you have to write. It might be some project work that you've been dreading doing. It's actually getting on with that first thing, getting it out the way is something that I try and do on a daily basis. So eat the frog is quite important to me. And finally, I think don't let what we call virtual presenteeism cause you anxiety. Don't feel you have to reply to every email immediately. I think the situation we find ourselves in, it's a marathon and we need to pace ourselves each day and conserve energy for the next day too. We use Hangouts and we have daily check-in calls and everyone knows what each other's goals are for each day. So that takes the pressure off the team too. Okay, so we'll move on. We'll move on to a few things, including the calls to action. So I think really important is to focus on 3 things to accomplish each day and don't think about much more than that. If you've got a huge long task list, it's less likely you're going to get through those things. So it's focusing on 3 things to accomplish each day. And if you do accomplish those things, then you can start on another 3 things. But I would really focus on 3 things to begin with. I mentioned eat the frog. It helps stop procrastination. And I also have created a to-don't list. So there's lots and lots of distractions in the house, obviously like the housework, hoovering, loads and loads of things you shouldn't be doing if you really need to focus on your job. So I create a to-don't list, a little reminder of what I shouldn't be doing on a day-to-day basis whilst I'm working from home. And I like to work in sprints and have regular breaks, and it helps re-energize me and get me ready for the next task. And finally, the close down ritual. I go running with my daughter at 5:30 just to make sure that I am actually out the door as I would be in the office, and I can start focusing on my home life, my personal life. Okay, on to Zoom. Zoom is, as you know, an American remote conferencing services company. They're based in California. and they provide remote conferencing services, which includes video conferencing, online meetings, chat, and mobile collaboration. They were founded in 2011 by a gentleman called Eric Yuan. He was a lead engineer at Cisco Systems and his collaboration business called WebEx. And WebEx is another video conferencing tool, and that's where Eric Yuan originated. Zoom started it in around January 2013, and by May they'd already claimed 1 million participants, and by 2014 they had 10 million users. And by February 2015, the number of people utilizing Zoom reached 40 million individuals and 65,000 businesses. And the company has hosted over 1 billion meeting minutes since it was established. Zoom's entered what we call the Unicorn Club, and that's businesses with a value of over $1 billion. And in March 2019, Zoom filed to go public on NASDAQ at $36 a share. I checked yesterday and the share price was around $120 or just below that. So if you managed to invest in Zoom in the early days, you've probably done very well out of that. So countless businesses have shifted to remote working, but really to help mitigate the impact of the COVID-19. And the sudden transition has business leaders learning on the fly how to empower remote teams and help maintain productivity and security and team building that drive success. But with that, Zoom has had some issues. They've had some data security and privacy issues, and they have come under scrutiny. Zoom CEO released a statement apologizing for certain security issues. Some of the issues are a result of Zoom having been designed for large institutions without full IT support. And to combat these issues, Zoom has said it will focus on data privacy and issue a transparency report as well. Zoom's also been criticized for its data hoarding practices. For instance, the company's iOS app was found to be sending analytics data to Facebook on startup, regardless of whether a user had a Facebook account or not. And that's a big no-no, but they've ended that practice over the last week. And there are other things that have been scrutinized right now, and steps and measures they're taking to end certain practices, which I certainly believe shouldn't be there. There's a little bit more about that later on. I think Eric Yuan, he's spoken candidly about how the usage of Zoom has ballooned overnight, and he's deeply sorry for the issues that have come about. I think what he said was, we did not design the product with the foresight that in a matter of weeks, every person in the world would suddenly be working, studying, and socializing from home. And I think the fact that he's addressing some of those vulnerabilities and had recognized the needs to focus on security rather than adding bells and whistles is very good news. So just to give you an overview of what they're actually doing, they're clarifying their encryption practices. They're removing code that meant information was shared with iOS app to Facebook. They're also removing a LinkedIn feature to prevent unnecessary data disclosure. And they've already released fixes for some Mac-related issues. And they've also issued guidelines about how to avoid becoming a victim of Zoom bombing, which I'll mention in a moment or two. What they're doing in the next 90 days, the freezing development of new features. Their total focus now is on safety and privacy. They're conducting a review with independent experts to understand what's going on. And they're also holding weekly webinars to provide privacy and security updates. So they're being as transparent as possible. I think they've recognized there's some significant issues, but they are addressing them. So it's kind of watch this space for the time being. There are alternative services, though, just to mention that obviously Zoom has become one of the most popular video applications because it's incredibly intuitive. It's very easy to use and some great features for the very basic service, which is free of charge. But if you're looking for highly secure services, there are other options like Signal. If you're wanting something that's less frictionless, i.e. when you send an invite to a participant with Zoom, they have to download a client. Now, some video applications, you don't need to do that. They use something called WebRTC so that participant only has to open their browser and they're connected immediately. There's nothing to download. So there are lots and lots of video applications available in the marketplace. One of the key things is around end-to-end encryption. And there's a system of communication where only the users can read the messages. Now, some services are fully encrypted and some are not. Right now, services like Google Hangouts isn't. It's only encrypted from the user to the Google servers, for instance, but then Google will do anything with the data. So if you need advice on alternative video applications and services, happily to talk about them, okay? So we shall move on to just some key features, if that's okay. Zoom has two main components. One is a desktop client, and the desktop client is the best way of using Zoom. I think there'll be emphasis today on actually the devices you're using. Now, the best experience is from a desktop, whether it's a PC or Mac. You've got access to all the features, are much more easier to use. You can only see a limited number of participants on a mobile device, usually a maximum of 4. So the best experience is using the desktop client on either a PC or Mac, okay? There are also the around the 4 icons. So in terms of the desktop client, you've got the button for a new meeting, you've got the button for scheduling a meeting, and you've got your join button, and you've got screen share too. And across the top, you'll see there's a navigation bar where there's some additional options. So you have home, chat, phone, meetings, and contacts. Now, some of those features we're not going to cover today because they are features that businesses would use for their internal users, and they're more about collaboration for users within their business itself. So you can have chat and you can create a channel, but they're collaboration tools and have your own contacts as well. What we're going to actually focus on today is the meetings element. And the meetings element gives you a meetings tab. It lists your upcoming meetings and links to past recordings. You can click on upcoming to see your meeting list and personal meeting ID. And you can click on the plus icon to schedule a new meeting. It will sync with your calendar as well. And the recorded tab links to your cloud recordings where you can view and share your meeting recordings and transcripts. We'll come on to recording shortly. There's different flavors of recording available depending on the plan that you're actually using. The other key component of this service is the Zoom web portal. Now, the web portal is really important because it provides access to a lot of advanced settings that you don't get from the desktop client. It only gives you access to some basic settings from the desktop client. And if you want to change some more advanced settings, you need to log into the web portal. You can change your profile picture within the web portal, which is the picture that's shown when you mute video. You can also access scheduled meetings and create new ones. What I like as well is you can create a personalized template for meeting invites. So you're not sending the standard invite each time. You're creating something that's more personalized to you, and you can use that over and over again instead of the standard invites. And what I find really useful too is you can download plugins for email and browsers. And one of the best ones is the Outlook plugin, which we'll come into explain with the top tips very shortly. You can also use the web portal to access recordings, and that's local and cloud. So you can download or record locally to your own PC or device of choice, but you can also take advantage of Zoom's cloud recording, but that's only for paid accounts. And you also have access to some advanced settings to enable and disable features such as chat, polls, and breakout rooms as well, which we'll explain shortly. Just a quick word about meetings and webinars. Today really is the focus is on meetings, which provide more interaction. Webinars and meetings from Zoom, they do provide similar functionality, but there are some key differences. I think meetings, you can have up to 1,000 participants with an enterprise license. But webinars, think of them as a large auditorium, which could scale up to 10,000 participants. Now with webinars, usually there's no video. It's audio only with screen share for slides. And it provides like a lecture hall environment where you can educate hundreds, thousands of users all at once. So we're talking about meetings today rather than webinars. And what do you get within the Zoom meeting plans? I think most of you will be absolutely fine on a free account, but there are some key differences as you step up. If you're going to have one-to-one meetings with individuals, that's unlimited, and you can get that free with a basic Zoom account. However, if you do want to do multi-party Zoom video conferences, so if you want to host your own event, you may have 5, 10, 20, 30 participants that you want to include in an event. It could be even more. The time limit is a key thing. Your duration would only be 40 minutes. So in the instance where your event or meeting is going to be longer than 40 minutes, it makes sense to upgrade to the Pro service, which is what we're using today to host this event. And that gives you unlimited time for your multi-party video conferences, and really is the service that most people will use if they're going to host large-scale events. So we'll move on to some tips, if that's okay. I think attention to detail is really, really important when you're hosting these events, and investing in the right equipment for your needs. I think if you're going to host an event where you, for instance, have a music lesson and you want to show the participant a particular musical piece, or you want to demonstrate guitar or piano and they need to see the keys quite clearly, or the guitar strings, then it's worthwhile investing in a high quality standalone HD webcam. And also for fast moving activities, if you're having a dance class or hosting a dance class or something of that nature, investing in a good HD webcam is really, really important. The other thing is really you need to look at investing in a USB headset. I think the best sound quality comes from using a USB headset. Yes, all the devices have a microphone, but depending on the distance you are from your device, it can sound quite muffled. It's not particularly clear if you don't use a USB headset. So for the highest quality experience using any video application, make sure you are using the right equipment. And finally, if you're going to host an event, can you hardwire your PC? And by that, I mean, can you get an Ethernet cable and connect your PC or Mac directly to your router? That way you have a hardwired connection. It's far more reliable and stable than Wi-Fi, and will ensure good quality throughout your Zoom events. So Zoom meeting tips number 2, I think it's all about owning your space. As you can see from the screenshot here, this is from a previous Zoom meeting, one of the panel discussions on a Tuesday evening. And I'd like to ask the question, who do you think stands out in the Zoom meeting opposite? And why do they stand out? Now, I think what would be good if we stop sharing there just for one moment. And what I'm going to do, I want to go open the chat, and hopefully you've had a little opportunity to look at that picture. So if anybody wanted to raise their hand and advise if there's anything in that picture or scene that makes someone or something stand out, raise your hand and we'll just open you up and have a little discussion, if that's okay. Okay, I've got Louise's hand up. So I'm going to unmute you, Louise, if you wouldn't mind just commenting on that picture that you've just seen.
Thank you, Jason. I think that your one stood out quite a lot because your background is simple. So it's very easy to see and focus on you. And additionally, I think that Damon's is also quite easy to see because it's a very plain background. Some of them had quite dark backgrounds. Mine tends to be quite dark, which I know isn't so easy and obvious to see. And I think that makes a big difference.
Thanks, Louise. I think, yeah, one of the key things is actually own that space. That is your space. If you're in a large meeting room and you want to stand out within a Zoom meeting, if you're using it for networking, you're hosting your own event, can you make use of the virtual background for messaging purposes, for your own branding? And depending on the color of the background, contrast that in terms of what you're wearing. So you'll see right now, our logo is predominantly black, and I'm wearing a white shirt to contrast that. Mary Ann was doing a similar thing. Their logo is a lighter in color, but she's wearing dark clothing within that Zoom screenshot. And Mary Ann runs the We Achieve events, the daily drop-ins and the panel discussions on a Tuesday evening. So you can actually create your own marketing space, own that space, and use it. There is a word of warning. The service we use to create the logo behind me is called a virtual background, and it's an absolutely fantastic application. It's a great tool which you can use on any of the accounts. Now, it doesn't work well on older devices. You may find that you're coming in and out, it's a little bit blotchy, it's not clear enough. So if you're using a very old PC or Mac or a mobile device, it may not work. So it's about a matter of trial and error, essentially, and seeing if it works for you. But if you can use it and it looks good, I would definitely embrace it for your own events, whether you use it for your logo, a marketing message, and really up the ante in terms of professionalism when you're using Zoom and hosting your own events as well. Okay. I'm just going to go back to this. Okay, so just to reiterate, the virtual background service is a great service, and you should try and utilize it if you can. It's easy to find, it's accessible from your settings, from your desktop client, and yeah, make use of it and trial it. The other thing I would do is use HD video as an event presenter. Now, HD video gives much better quality picture if you are hosting the event yourself. And I think it's really important that the quality is good. I think there's a lot of participants where they're using standard definition, or they might have poor broadband connections and the picture quality isn't good. And sometimes it will cut out and go to audio only as well. But if you are presenting a Zoom event, I would always tick enable HD, which you can see in the settings on the right-hand side. I've also illustrated in the picture how not to present yourself in terms of clothing when you've got a dark background. Always wear something light and vice versa. And you can actually use virtual makeup with Zoom. So there's an option here on the right-hand side in the image that gives you the option to touch up my appearance. Now that just gives a slight soft focus to your image, and you can get rid of all those wrinkles by using the touch up my appearance feature if you wanted to. And the other thing you can use is you can tick spotlight my video when I speak, so it puts a little yellow border around you when you speak and highlights that you're there, puts you front and center to your audience as well. And the other key thing about making the right impression is use a co-host to help manage the event. The co-host will be able to check on what's going on in chat. They'll be able to share links more effectively, so you can focus on actually presenting the Zoom meeting or event as well. Okay. Moving on to tip 4, using the right device. We mentioned use a large screen device for the best user experience. You're not going to get a great deal from using Zoom on your mobile. You can only see a very limited number of participants, and some of the features are not as accessible if you're using a PC or Mac or large screen iPad. You can see more participants. You'll be able to see up to 49 participants on a Zoom hosted meeting when you're using a PC and Mac. So you get a much better view, and you can also change the screen view. So you can go from full screen to presenter view, so it's just the presenter, and to gallery views, where you can, in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you can actually change how you're seeing the whole Zoom experience, and you only really get that from a PC or Mac in a large screen. Okay. Zoom meeting tips number 5. I think use the Zoom Outlook plugin. Actually, if you use the plugin, you don't actually need to use the Zoom desktop client or the Zoom web portal at all. You can actually schedule your meetings, link to the meetings by using the Outlook plugin. It's a fantastic little plugin. You can download it from downloads, at Zoom and also from the web portal itself. But it does help you manage meetings far more efficiently. So you can schedule them straight from Outlook, and it provides the link information as well. And every meeting is in your Outlook calendar, so you're organized. You do have all that functionality in terms of your upcoming meetings within the Zoom client for PC or Mac, but certainly for using Outlook on a day-to-day basis, it's simple and efficient to integrate both services. And Zoom meeting tips number 6. I think this is a key one. Zoom on Sunday, the 5th of April, released a software update to address a lot of the security issues around the phenomenon of Zoom bombing and to prevent unknown persons entering Zoom meetings by guessing the ID. And one of the key things or changes they've actually made is to create a password for all automatically generated meetings. And I think you have a personal meeting ID. Everyone within Zoom has their own personal meeting ID, but I'd never, ever, ever distribute that within an email to, for instance, a Zoom event. That's your personal meeting ID that you should only ever use for your friends and close colleagues. If you're going to run or host an event, never use your own personal meeting ID. There's an option when you schedule meeting from the web client to which will be ticked automatically by default now, and it will generate a meeting ID for the event itself. And a password will be required by default. Now, you can disable these features if you want to, but I recommend you don't. It will create a unique link when you create a new meeting and password for your event. Now, when you send that link, even if there is a password, the password's actually embedded in the link. So you can still join seamlessly to the Zoom meeting or event as a participant, but you can also join with the meeting ID and the password too. So there's 2 different options you can use. And it's still simple, even before obviously the changes they've made from Sunday onwards. So that's the key thing. I'd always look to use the generate automatically option when you're scheduling your new meeting and have a unique ID for each event. Okay, Zoom meeting tips number 7. Use a password. I think that's the key thing to prevent Zoom bombing and unknown persons actually entering your event. And always use a password for public meetings. It's set by default, but you can disable it if you want to, but we recommend you don't do that. So it's just to reiterate that point, it's quite important that you do use passwords to protect your events moving forward. And as you've probably experienced today and other Zoom meetings you may have attended since the 5th of April, the waiting room feature has been set up as a default service with any Zoom account holders. So if you're going to host a meeting, it will already be ticked in terms of putting participants into a waiting room before a meeting starts. Now that's really, really important because it gives you time to get ready. You can see who's ready to admit. And you've got the option to admit all at once at a start time of your choice. And then you still have the option of admitting individuals afterwards as well. So the waiting room is really important. It also gives you an option to filter out unknown individuals. If, for instance, you know that you had 20 ads from your Eventbrite event and you had all those user details, you could check that they're all there before admitting, even if you wanted to. So the waiting room gives you time to manage and control your event and manage who's actually participating as well. Again, you can disable the waiting room, but I recommend you use that as a standard feature if you're going to host your own event. And meeting tips number 9, I think really the key thing is don't let anyone hijack. If you're running a public event, you don't want any individual to hijack your event. And one of the great services around Zoom is the ability to screen share. Now, one of the key things about that is that you need to ensure that all participants can't screen share because suddenly you can lose control of the event. So you can lock that down within your settings available from the web portal. As you can see in the little screenshot to the right-hand side, who can share? Host only. You can change that to all participants if, for instance, you're having a collaborative meeting, an internal meeting, for instance. But certainly if you're going to host your own public event and you want to promote your expertise, your own services, and you only want to screen share yourself, I'd ensure that the host only is switched on. Okay. And another great service that Zoom provides is annotation. So Zoom gives participants to the ability to annotate anything that's shared. So if you want to prevent that, make sure that is locked down as well. It's a great tool for visual collaboration. You can annotate anything that's actually shared, whether it's a PDF, whether it's a graph, whether it's an Excel worksheet, something you'll want to work together, things you want to check. Annotation is a fantastic tool, but again, make sure it's disabled if you're running a public event, and this can be disabled in web portals. Another great feature is invite-only meetings. You could have an event and you might want it to send it to just to an exclusive list of people. So it's a private meeting rather than something that's going to be public. You might have an event where you want to give an update on GDPR. You have 20 users that you want to invite, and there is an option to authenticate users. So you can send invites to specific email addresses, and it's a feature whereby you can authenticate the users before they actually join. You can enable it in the web portal under meeting and schedule meeting, and then only authenticated users can actually join. And it's usually via email address. It's a very, very simple process for both the host to send the notifications and for the participants to join as authenticated users as well. Zoom meeting tips number 11. Removing a participant. If you are going to host a public event, you may occasionally get an unruly participant or somebody that is causing a problem or two. And you've got the option to put them in the waiting room if you want. So as a host or co-host, if you want to eject somebody, you do have the ability to do that. To do that, you can click Manage Participants at the bottom of your Zoom window right now. And next to the person you want to remove, you can click More, and then you can put them in waiting room, and from there you can remove them. The other thing you can do, you can disable a participant's audio and video. So you can turn off the participant's camera if somebody is being rude or inappropriate. You've got the ability as host to do that. So it's something that you should consider and know how to do before you run a public Zoom event. So I would definitely know how to do that and do some testing around that with you or your colleagues if you're going to run your first event. I think it's really important that you do a trial run. And you get used to the controls and features that Zoom provides. There are absolutely fantastic services available to a host, and they're very, very easy to use, but you do need to get used to them before you run your first event. So we'd always recommend do a trial run with yourself and a co-host. So it makes the event as easy as possible to manage. You can also prevent GIFs and files in chat, which you'll find are probably locked down today. Participants have got the ability to share files, including animated GIFs. Maybe you don't want that to happen within a Zoom event. You want the focus on the actual event itself. You don't want other participants causing distraction. And you can also lock that down within your meeting settings from the web portal. Now, all these little tips, we're going to follow up with a little guide, and we will distribute the actual slides and a recording of the session afterwards. So, and if you do need help with any of these things and you can't find them within settings, we'll be able to help you. So my details will be in chat at the end. So if you do need advice on how to use it or find certain settings, we're more than happy to help you. But certainly, if you need to disable these features, it's all the information is there in the resources that we're going to provide at the end as well. You can also disable private chat. Now, this is a feature where within Zoom, within your chat, you can send a message to everybody, but you can also send a private chat to individuals within the chat service. Now, you can disable this. So if there is somebody harassing someone in a public event, for instance, via private messaging, it's something that can be disabled, or something you might want to consider. You can do it. So a participant can only message everyone rather than an individual. So again, that setting can be found in your meeting settings via the web portal, and it's definitely something that you should consider as well. The other fantastic feature with Zoom is desktop sharing. Now, I love desktop sharing. I think you can see the slides in front of you, but it's not just about slides. You can share almost anything. Even the entry music, I could play a track on my PC, and you can see a little option that's circled in the screenshot called Share Computer Sound. And within advanced settings, you can play just the sound from your computer. So you could have introductory music, you could have outro music. Obviously, you can use share slides, but there's also another great feature called a whiteboard. Now, the whiteboard is fantastic for collaboration. So if you have a little team and you want to do some blue sky thinking, or create something that you're all contributing to, you could use the whiteboard within screen sharing to all annotate whatever it might be. So you can screen share PDFs, screen share the slides, for instance, and screen share video and sound. In fact, anything you want, you'll have the ability to share. And what is another great service within Zoom is polls, and it's absolutely fantastic for audience interaction. So you can break up and make your Zoom event as interactive as you like by running polls. Yeah, there would have been an entry poll when you arrived, and that was just to find out how you're using Zoom right now. And there'll be a little poll at the end to find out a little bit more about the session and what you think too. So I'd make use of polls. Polls are a superb service, and they're easy to create when you actually create your meeting. So when you schedule a meeting, you can create poll questions, and it's a very simple process to create them and then launch them once you actually start the Zoom event. And you can use polls in the free account as well as all the other paid accounts as well. So even if you want to do a one-to-one and some polling, or a multi-party call that's less than 40 minutes, and you still want to do a little bit of polling, you can still use the service as a free user. And breakout rooms. I think breakout rooms are fantastic. We could all be in a Zoom event and we all decide that we are going to tackle a question posed within an event and break up into smaller groups. Now, the feature in Zoom allows you to create breakout rooms for as many participants as you like. So for instance, I could create 10 breakout rooms and then either automatically or manually split users into the breakout rooms, and they will then join their own individual breakout room where they can discuss an issue and put together an answer before the host brings them back into the main conference. It's very simple to set up, and it's very simple to administer as a host. And again, if anybody wants to do a one-to-one Zoom session with me, I can very, very easily show them how the service actually works, and how to actually apply it in real life. But it is very, very simple to use. So it's certainly a feature that, for instance, networking, I know that Business Gateway will be using the breakout rooms feature so that they can have smaller networking groups to get to know each other before they join back into the main networking event. And it's a really useful feature for similar things as well. And again, record your meetings. I think obviously if you want a record of your Zoom meeting, one of the great things about Zoom is that you've got recording available to you. Now you've got a free account, but there is limitations to the recording there. You can only actually record locally to your own PC with a free or basic Zoom account. If you pay for Zoom, with a pro account, for instance, you get cloud recording as well. And those cloud recordings are then accessible from your Zoom web portal. So you can sign into the Zoom web portal and very quickly access a history of all your recordings and use them and send them to attendees as well. All you have to do to actually start recording is there is a record button in your ribbon at the bottom of this screen, and you simply press the record button, as you can see in the screenshot on the slide, and you've got the option to record to your computer or to the cloud if you have a paid account. So I would definitely make use of that feature. It's a fantastic service, and you'll have a record of your meeting or event for whenever you require it. And finally, another thing a lot of users don't know about is that you can actually stream your meetings to Facebook Live and to YouTube and to other live streaming platforms, which I think is an absolutely fantastic tool. If you want to really, really engage with your audience or expand your audience reach, then Zoom really easily integrates with Facebook Live. So we could go live and broadcast live over Facebook Live whilst running the Zoom event. Again, if you need more advice on how to set that up, please feel free to get in touch with me and I'll be able to give you some advice on how that is enabled and how you can actually use that service. But certainly if you're in a B2C environment, a business to consumer led environment, and you're selling consumer services and your audience is already on Facebook, if you're wanting to do a showcase and invite participants into your Zoom meeting, you can also stream that into Facebook and to YouTube. So it has a huge use, and applications are really unlimited. It's certainly with the reach that Facebook and YouTube can potentially give you and your business. And so those very quickly are the main tips that I would use as an event in terms of how to actually secure your event, and services you can use as a host to ensure that your event runs smoothly. But in terms of best practice reminder, I'd always use the desktop application if you can, rather than using Zoom in on an Android device or iOS device. I'd always check your audio settings and your video settings before you actually enter. Make sure that everything works well for you. And where you can, use a USB headset so that the participants can hear high quality audio for the best event experience. And also in terms of camera positioning. Now, right now, I've got my laptop, but I've got it raised, so it's almost at eye level. And providing as much eye-to-eye contact is important within the Zoom event. So I would try and position your webcam at your eye level so that you can look at your participants. I think that's quite important because a lot of the people may be using phones, or they may be using their iPads, or they may be using laptops that are low down and not positioned so that you can get good eye-to-eye contact. So those are the things I would definitely consider for good best practice. Okay. In terms of resources, Zoom is fantastic with resource. They have a series of YouTube short video playlists. So they break down all the different services within Zoom for participants and hosts in very short videos, 2 or 3 minutes at most. And you can access those on YouTube. They also have a really good FAQ section. And what I really like about Zoom is that they have live training webinars. So you can log into Zoom via the web portal, and you can click on an option for live training. And from there, you've got a range of live training events that goes on, I think, at least twice a day for most of their subjects, from the basics of using Zoom to more advanced features and hosting events yourself. And that's actually curated by Zoom professionals, Zoom employees, and it's a great way of getting to know the service features really well if you need to build confidence before you're actually running your own events or meetings. There is also a fantastic help center, and there's also links to the plugins that we also mentioned. I think particularly the Outlook plugin is the best one. all these resources are hyperlinks, so we'll send out the slides afterwards, and you'll be able to click on the links and check the resources for yourself. And also they have access to the meetings and webinars best practice, and there's a whole resource section around that too, and some great tools to use. I'll come on to a little bit about Columbus now, but I think probably a good time is to open the floor just to check if we have any questions. So I'm just going to stop sharing this for just a moment.
Jason, sorry, Jason, I've got a list of some questions that have been on the chat. Can I ask them first?
Yep, of course. Shall we open it up?
Yeah, so I think Madeline asked, how do you set up a co-host remotely, but that might have been answered in the chat.
Okay, fantastic. So in terms of co-hosting, when if you're the host of a Zoom meeting, and for instance, Damon and Philip joined 15 minutes early into our meeting, I'm the host, and when they arrive, I can click over that person and create a co-host. So when I hover over a person from participants, I can see an option, a button called More. And from there, I can create a co-host. You just need to find the option within the options that appear. So it's very easy to create a co-host, and you can have unlimited co-hosts as well. So you can have multiple people managing the event on your behalf as well. So that's quite important. And I think if you're going to have your own Zoom events, if you're going to do little showcases, if you're going to offer advice and expertise, you want to focus on that yourself. So having a co-host within your own Zoom event is really, really important, because they can help manage everything for you. But it's a very simple process to assign a co-host as soon as they've actually entered your meeting.
I want a co-host, bitch. Zoom bomb. You've been rated. What do you got? What do you got? You don't got anything. Keep
and there
doing
we
it.
are.
Nope. Rated.
And there we go.
That was part of our example of a Zoom bomb, by the way.
Indeed, you know what one is now. There we are. So in that instance where you've been Zoom bombed, you can actually remove that person. I think that was one of the tips within the actual Zoom tips themselves, is that you have the ability very quickly to highlight a user and ensure that they are removed from the actual session.
And you know how to get back in. How did I do that? How did I get back in? What?
And there we go.
Zoom bomb.
We've been Zoom bombed, and there we go. Okay, what's the next question, Philip?
Mary asked, is there a Mac compatible plugin?
Absolutely, yes. So you can download the Mac.
So you can just plug it in and Zoom bomb. What are you gonna do? Zoom bomb.
Oh, wonderful. Right, so yes, there is a Mac plugin. You can download that from Zoom, and when you download the actual plugin, it will select, it's the same plugin essentially for PC and Mac, so you will download that either as part of the process to create your Zoom account, but that's accessible from the actual Zoom website itself.
Madeline asked for some guidance on how to use Outlook integration for the Zoom Outlook plugin.
So all you'd need to do is you can go down to the Zoom website where they have a download section, and you can download the Outlook plugin. Once you've downloaded the plugin, you can install it, and the features will be integrated with your calendar. So when you open a new calendar or create a new calendar event, you'll see a few buttons to create a Zoom meeting, and you can click on that button within your Outlook calendar item, and then you can personalize it, and it will create the link for you and all the information you need for that. But you can download it from the web portal when you log into Zoom, or you can download it separately by just going to the download section on the Zoom website.
Just three more. Can you share both? This is from Bruce. Can you share both two screens? And can you give an example of moving between slides and Explorer?
Yes, so Zoom gives you the ability to actually use more than one screen. So if you want to actually use dual monitors, Zoom allows you to do that. You can create a dual monitor situation by accessing your settings within the actual desktop client. There's a very simple option for that where you can click a box for dual monitors, and you can display what you're actually so you can display your screen and the view of all your participants within the actual Zoom meeting, and you can also display on the other screen some material that you need to look at. So I would, again, it's all about testing it. So I could provide a link to how you actually do that, but you could test it because it doesn't work for everybody. It depends on how they're actually going to use the service and what other information they need to access while they're actually on the Zoom meeting and hosting it as well.
Arthur asked, are breakout rooms available in the free version?
Absolutely. So breakout rooms are available for all plans. So even if you want to use the free account, you can enable the breakout rooms with the basic plan.
And last one before we open up, Kat asked, can Zoom connect to Gmail?
So what was that again, Philip?
Can Zoom connect to Gmail?
No, there isn't a plugin specifically for Gmail that I'm aware of right now. Whether or not there are any additional third-party integrations, I'm not aware of at the moment. It integrates best with Microsoft Outlook right now, but I will take that away and see if I can find out more information. So what I think we'll do now, if you want to raise your hand, I don't know if you've got any more questions or things that you want to discuss. Sharon, I can see Sharon. So if you want to unmute. Hi, Sharon, how are you?
Not bad, thanks, Jason. I've got a question. I'm using Zoom and Facebook Messengers for lots of different reasons, but one of them is actually to keep in touch with a whole load of family that are splattered all over the world.
Yeah.
Some of them are really elderly, still got all my grandparents, so if I've had a couple of invitations for Zoom meetings through WhatsApp. Now, can people who don't have the Zoom app access it without actually downloading it?
Yes, they can. You can just use the browser-based version of Zoom, but it has limited features, so it doesn't give you all the participant features by just using the web browser itself. You get the best user experience if you actually download the Zoom client. But you can still do that, and it works best in Chrome. So if you're sending an invitation to some family members and they don't want to download, they can still join via web, but it's best using the Chrome browser for that purpose. Okay.
I think it's more about not being able to download the Zoom app rather than...
Right, okay. And there are other, Sharon, there are other services available that don't involve having to download a client for the participant as well. So if you want more information about additional services that are a little bit less frictionless, then talk to me afterwards. I'd be happy to make some recommendations for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? If you want to raise your hand, I've got Brian Morrison in front of me. I can see. Brian, do you want to unmute in the bottom left-hand corner? Hi, Brian. How are you doing?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you well.
It's not a question. It's just to say that this has been awesome. I run business networking events around the UK and Scotland, and I'm trying to go online, and this training has really helped me. So it's just to say thank you very much.
I really appreciate that. That puts a big, big smile on my face. That's made my day. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Alan. Andrew, I could see you have a question too.
Yes.
How can I help you?
Hi, it's just I usually use Zoom on my laptop, which is great, and you can, when you've got a lots of people in the meeting, you can click and drag to make the screen smaller, and you can see more of the faces essentially when you've got it in the gallery view. I've noticed that I'm currently using it on my iPad, and if I'm looking at you, I can see 4 people on the bottom, or I can make it so I think if I touch the plus button, it'll show me slightly more. Is there a way that you can make it though that you can make the picture smaller so you can see everybody? Because if I go to gallery view, I can only see 9.
No, so that's the limit. That's one of the things we stress today. The best user experience is using it on a PC or Mac if you can. The iPad will, and the iPhone, I think, or a small smartphone will only actually show 4
Yeah, no, I've noticed that the phone's only 4, but
Yeah.
I wasn't sure when you said the big screen iPads. I wasn't sure.
iPad maximum, I think, is 9. So for the best experience and seeing everybody, up to 49 participants within a singles pane, I would definitely use a PC on Mac if you can. Okay.
Magic. Thank you very much.
Any more questions? If you want to raise your hands, I'll just look through. Do I have any more hands in the air? Okay, I'll just move on to the next section if that's all right. Philip, if there are any more questions come up,
I think Bruce was looking to ask a question. He was asking for a quick demo of going from a slide to go back to your slides and then go online as if answering a question from a participant. Is that right,
Sorry.
Bruce?
Where's Bruce? Bruce, do you want to unmute and just tell me what you'd like to achieve, and I'll see if I can help you. I have unmuted, but I think he may have an audio issue. That's another thing I've actually found. We've had a number of users, we've actually helped a number of users this week that have had audio issues with using older PC and Macs and with Windows 10. Now, one of the key things around audio, if you cannot connect to Zoom, you may have a permissions issue on your Windows PC, and you have to enable third-party access to your microphone so that you can use your mic on Zoom. So if you do have audio issues and for any reason you can't connect to Zoom, that may be one of the reasons why. We've offered a few members and non-members support on making sure that they can use Zoom before meetings. So if you do have any issues, again, feel free to contact me. We'll do our best to help you. We can also remote onto your machines to make sure that your machines are actually ready and your audio and video does work. So I would note that to be prepared, make sure your audio and video is working. But if you do have any problems, we'll be happy to help you. Okay. Bruce, so Philip, can you just go back through Bruce's question again?
Yeah, Bruce still is online because he's posted in the chat, revisit your slideshow and then demonstrate how you'd move away from your slides and do something else, such as an internet demo.
Right, okay, so it's really intuitive Zoom as a platform for sharing any content that you would like. So in your ribbon at the bottom where you have the options for manage participants, chat, etc., there is a button for screen share. So all I have to do is press that share screen button, and then it will give me options to share whatever content I like that is open on my PC. So whether that's some slides, whether that is video, it's very, very simple just to select what you want to share and then start sharing. Now, once you start sharing something using the Zoom screen share feature, it's very, very simple to stop sharing by just pressing stop sharing. There's a little option that appears at the top of your screen, so you can either pause or stop the share. And then if you stop the share, you can press the share screen button again and open a browser, for instance, that's ready at a page. You want to demo a video or demo something in a completely different application, whether it's web-based or not, it's very simple to just then start that afterwards. So you can share some slides and then you could stop that share and then you can start again and share something else completely different. Again, all these things, I think this in terms of when we come to sum up, it's all about testing the service yourself. Obviously, you can have a free paid account. You could get your friends involved and start playing around with screen share, start playing around with polling, and actually getting used to the service yourself before you go live or start advertising your own Zoom meeting or event. So I think it's quite important that you do test the service and test the features such as screen share, but it's very, very simple with just a couple of clicks to share any content you like, to stop sharing it, and then share something immediately afterwards. It's a very simple process. Is there any more questions at this stage, Philip?
There's a question from Arthur. He's raised his hand.
Arthur. Do you want to mute Arthur? Hang on, we'll just get you. Ah, there we go.
All right. I am on an iPad Pro and I want to screen share, and I also use the files portion of the iPad Pro to put files which I want to share with my clients. But Zoom doesn't seem to accept things from files and wants to do it from Google Files or whatever. Is that correct? Am I saying something wrong there that it can't share with files?
Absolutely, you can. There is a setting in your advanced settings accessible from the web portal that allows you to either enable or disable sharing, but actually locate where those files are originating from. So you can share local files as well as cloud-based files. You can do that, and it's just a matter of enabling it in the web portal settings.
Yes, it's on the web portal. It's not on the desktop or the app version.
No, absolutely not. You'd need to log into the web portal so you can enable that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Louise is asking, how can we ensure we don't get a Zoom bomber on our own chats?
Well, that is a good question, because Zoom have stated from the 5th of April that they issued a software update. And one of the reasons, as I mentioned before, they did that was to enforce passwords on actual Zoom meetings, but also to make the whole platform more secure. Now, there is an issue where, for instance, that person could register for your event. They register you for your event and they bomb your meeting, and there's very little you can do about that. If they've actually registered, Damon has followed best practice. We don't actually provide the link publicly. You have to actually register for the Eventbrite service itself, and then you get the link, a meeting ID and password. But there's actually, if nothing stopping you or stopping them to join your meeting in a public event, if they've registered for the event and actually got the details they need for that. Really, the only thing you can do is use authentication. So you're actually going to invite some specific people, for instance, and they have to authenticate to get in. So they have made improvements, but it's by no means foolproof right now. They're making lots and lots of security enhancements as we speak. So the next 90 days are probably the most important to them. But certainly the things you should do is password protect every single event, and potentially use authentication as a service. And if you've got a list of people you'd like to invite to your event using their email addresses, for instance. Anything else, Philip, at this stage?
And no, there's no other hands up just now.
Arthur. We covered Arthur, haven't we? Yep, that's it. Okay, fantastic. Right, so I've just got one or two more things to say before I hand over to Damon, if that's all right. We are on time. We've got 15 minutes left, but we'll really motor on now and just finish off if that's okay. I'm going to share my screen again very, very briefly. I will just bring that back up. And I will just resume. Okay, so I wanted to thank you all for coming along. I really, really appreciate the number of people that have joined the event today. Zoom, like all video technology, takes a little while to get used to, but the more you use it, the more it becomes second nature. So I think one of the key takeaways is use that account, set up a one-to-one meeting to begin with someone you know, and start testing those features to get used to them. And please feel free to contact me if you need advice on how to do anything that you've heard about in the presentation today. Just a little bit about what we're doing as a business. I mentioned before that we provide remote working and communications and technology solutions, and we're doing our best we can to support our customers at the moment. We've provided them with a free conference service for up to 20 participants, so that if they haven't embraced video technology and they have lots of employees all over the place, they can use the Columbus conference service free of charge for up to 20 participants with their own meeting ID, and they can have audio conferences. So we made that service completely free of charge. We've got customers that had to abandon their old fax services. So we have a free fax to email service that delivers fax to email inboxes. We're also providing free number porting, and that means companies that are using old-fashioned phone systems that couldn't have very limited options when it's using their telephony, we can port their numbers, and we're doing it free of charge to better services that give them more flexibility, like a hosted phone system or cloud-based phones. And coming on to cloud-based phones, we're providing Horizon. It's the UK's #1 hosted phone system in the UK for small businesses. There's about 500,000 users UK-wide, and Columbus is a provider of that service. We're providing it completely free of charge to all customers until the 30th of June. So there's no setup, there's no rental charges, and you even get all-inclusive UK local and national calls. And we're bolting on our own collaboration service, which includes video, and it's completely free of charge too. So if you do know of businesses that are struggling with remote working, who have disjointed communications and do need help, please do get in touch, because we can certainly help you. We're also offering customers hibernation options. So if your service provider, if you have broadband, you have mobiles, you have other services, we can hibernate those services to help you manage your cash flow more effectively over the next few months. So we put together a support package for our customers to help them should they require it. And you should ask your own service provider the same thing. And if you need assistance, do get in touch. The last thing, I've been dealing with lots of issues around home broadband and supporting Zoom as a video application. And a lot of customers have poor home broadband connections. So we've been helping customers supplement the home broadband with a 4G solution, which is really cost effective on a 90-day term. So you're not committed for a long term either on either O2 or Vodafone. So we're providing the technical support, we're providing the services, and we're supporting our customers as best we can. So that is really about it. Just in terms of a call to action, download the Zoom Outlook plugin and schedule a meeting from your calendar. Again, the links are in the resources in the slides, which we can distribute afterwards. Test the service and get comfortable using it before you go public or arrange a meeting yourself. And embrace video, stay connected. We'll all get through this as a community, and I think face-to-face contact is really, really important, especially over the next few weeks and months. It's reassuring to see a face when we can't do all the face-to-face visits that we're normally used to. And really try and aim for a video meeting next week once you've tested it. You know, remote working has the power to transform our working lives for the better, but obviously we're not really going to see that until we get over the current situation. And that is, oops, I'll go back a bit, just about it. So there are my contact details on the slide. We'll also pop them in the chat as well. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Damon, if that's all right. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing now and hand over back to Damon.
Hi everyone. Thank you again for that, Jason. I was going to add a few bits to today's proceedings, but that has been so extensively covered that I'm struggling to find bits that I could not repeat. Maybe reiterate some of the things. Obviously, Jason had mentioned there about testing and getting used to the system. That's really important. It mentioned sort of internet and actually maybe some contingency depending on the size of your event as well. I know Jason had a second machine ready to log in as a contingency just in case, and a second way of accessing the internet, probably through one of his 4G dongle devices. So I think, again, just to reiterate, you know, if you're having a panel and a bigger event, you know, get them to run through a bit with you for a test, convene them early so that you can overcome any of their issues, because the last thing you want someone not taking part in a panel or event that they're a key part of. And then just what I would add is we have used Eventbrite, and actually that's probably where we got Zoom bombed there, and I have to admit I wasn't on it there and let the guy in a couple of times in error because I recognized the names from the registration, so he obviously had gone on to Eventbrite. That said, it's a very useful platform for promoting your events on a different platform and getting a wider presence. So it's worked really well for us. It also, I think maybe one of the things I would reiterate is you can send out requests for questions in advance and help to sort of give a bit of shape or prepare yourself for prepare answers as well. And then probably one of the most really important things, especially for the bigger events, is the co-host or producers, as we sometimes call them, and getting them involved and up to date with that. Paul's here, who from Kingsmith, who has been helping with some of our other events, so he's well versed in this. And finally, just there's a whole range of events you can do. I think I'd mentioned we do sort of small networking events to keep people connected. You can do bigger meetings, and then the sort of knowledge exchange, and then obviously the massive sort of webinars that Jason had mentioned there as well. So hugely valuable resource. And again, just very much to thank everyone here for taking part in the session. I hope it's given a bit of insight into the sort of activity that we're undertaking as part of Together for Business. It's a really important campaign for us, so please get involved, and do get involved in the other events and networking opportunities that we're putting together as part of that. Please follow us on all our social media channels and try and use the hashtag Together for Business, please, if you're saying anything about this on your social media channels, for instance. And one finally, I think it was touched on, a lot of what's happening at the moment is going to change the way we work in the future. And remote working and online engagement is going to be a really key part of this. So that just shows how important it is to sort of get a handle on these sort of things. And before we go, we have started. One of the things that you do find when you're on these things is people can be very relaxed, or I think we had one recently. Everyone looked miserable, even though it was a really positive experience. I think sometimes you forget you're on camera. And I think that's an important thing. So what we try and do at the end of each session is just have a wee photo call with a thumbs up. So if possible, we could give a wee thumbs up before we finally finish, and I'll get Philip to take a wee picture of everyone to share. So pop your thumbs up, virtual and real thumbs. Is that us, Philip? Brilliant. That's perfect. And I'll just round up to, and if we could give a huge thanks to Jason, who's been fantastic in supporting Together for Business, not just through this event, but also through his support as a chamber champion. He's given a lot of free advice to help some of the businesses. Okay, right. I think that's us. Unless you've got anything else, Jason, to add.
I do. What I would like to say, I've got one more question. Can we stop people from chatting privately during webinars? Absolutely, you can. So that is a setting that is accessible from the main web portal. So you can enable or disable chat privately, or just everyone within the web portal, so you have more control of that. But I think, Damon, that's more or less it, unless there are any final questions. I'm just going to share one little thing that I enjoyed today, just as a way of signing off for the Easter weekend, if that's all right. I noticed something on LinkedIn earlier today that made me laugh, and it's all about making sure that you end your meeting or leave meeting with the little red option in the right-hand side of your screen. I'm just going to share my screen right now. There's a video here from LinkedIn. So it's only a minute long. I think it's worthwhile watching.
What they say here, darling. You know, like long may or something reek. Come on,
So I think make sure you end your meeting, and if you're like me, I've got my shirt on, but I've only got my boxers on underneath. I'll make sure I end the meeting on that note. Thank you all for participating. It's really, really appreciated, and I hope to see you all again soon. Damon, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you for participating. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
I've not got boxers on.
Jason, I think, I'm not sure if it's Bruce or Bruce Ellison would like to stay on just for a second to see if you can give him a short demonstration of moving from slides to internet.
Yeah, by all means, that's absolutely fine. If Bruce wants to hang on, that's absolutely fine.
If possible, could I see that as well? Can you do that through a multi-people thing?
I'll just describe what you have to do. So just in terms of being a host, you have the share screen button at on the ribbon at the bottom of your screen. Now, all you need to do is press the share screen button once. That will display a window where it'll give the options of anything that you want to share to your participants. You could select, for instance, the slides, and you can, once you've selected it, you just start share. From there, you will get a little option at the top of your screen that gives you the ability to pause or stop that share. So once you've finished sharing whatever content that might be, like your slides, you can stop share and then immediately start again and select another source of information that you want to share. And that could then be your web browser with something saved, or a video on YouTube. And then you can share that immediately after the content that you originally shared too. But it all comes from using the share screen button, pressing that once, and then selecting the source that you would like to share with everybody, and then using the stop share button that appears at the top of your screen, and then starting the process again to share something else. It's really simple. Go test it, and by all means, if you want to do a one-to-one Zoom call with me, we can happily do that, and I can share my screen, show you how to do it in a bit more detail. Okay.
That's great. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
All right.
Cheers. Have a good one.
Okay, guys, I'm going to end the meeting now, if that's all right. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic weekend. Take care.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Guys.
Bye-bye.